they like to send up will keep our end up, and they will know that they've been playing against the famous old dark blues.
Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday, or whatever day it is when you watch this. My name is Joseph Lutzer, and I am coming to you from Bangkok. Welcome to Blue Sunday. With me tonight is my co-host. He's a Carlton Life member, former president of the Carltonians, Nonno, Vince Lochisano. How are you tonight, Vince?
Well, I'm pretty good, thanks, Joe. Yes. Well, I guess you could call me a nonna. My partner, Tanya's daughter, had a baby on Friday. So a beautiful little girl called Mackenzie, and she was born on the 8th of September, which is a famous birthday for a former Carlton Brownlow medalist and former captain and champion player. You remember who that is?
We haven't had many Brownlow medalists, so it's either got to be Ian Collis.
No, more recent than that.
Chris
Judd, yes. Chris actually turned 40 on Friday. Juddy actually turned 40. Juddy actually turned 40 on Friday. So, yes, very famous birthday, the 8th of September. So, yes, very happy with all of that, and it's great to have you back too, mate. Yes, it's been a tumultuous 2 or 3 weeks for you and your lovely partner. I can only say that my heart goes out to especially her, but to both of you. Must be a pretty difficult time at the moment.
She's the one doing the hard work, not me. I'm just the supporting act. So anyway, we'll talk more about that anyway later. Let's get some admin out of the way first. As you all know, this show is coming to you on the social media platforms of Facebook and YouTube. So we encourage all of you, please, please, please like, share, and subscribe. Our Facebook page is @BlueSunday, and we are coming to you via the Jumper Punch YouTube channel. So if you're watching us, you can watch us either on Facebook @Blue Sunday, or you can watch us on YouTube @The Jumper Punch. Also, we would like to, let me get rid of that for the minute. We would also encourage your participation. So I notice a few people have started. So please, 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 comments, questions, criticisms,
opinions,
anything. It's your show. Vince and I are merely just the portals that bring it to you. It's you. Not I just give Vince a ring and we could just talk some crap for hours, which we normally do. Finally, just a reminder to let you know that we are proudly sponsored by my touring company, Retired Working For You Tours. We do all tours in Thailand. We specifically concentrate on Chiang Mai in the north, Bangkok, which is the capital, and down the south we go from Phuket all the way over to Koh Samui. But if there is any place of Thailand that you want to visit, please just get on the webpage, send me a note. I'm only more than happy to let you know where to go, where to stay, and what you should do. Anyway, Vince.
Joseph, what a fantastic weekend of football we've just had. Four sensational finals. I've got to say, I loved every second of every one of them.
Same here. But before we get to the football,
lots to talk about.
Just a little bit of frivolity. I saw a few funny photos and a few funny memes. Couldn't help it. This one, stats don't lie. Number of days since a finals win for Carlton, 0. Essendon, 6,943. And you may as well add another 365 to that because they won't play till next year. So anyway,
yes,
people.
Exactly. It'll be something like 7,300 by the time the finals come around next year.
I'm actually going to Sportsbet and seeing if I can get odds on 20,000.
You might have to wait. You might have to wait a while to collect, though. That's your only problem.
That's okay. I'm happy to wait. And the next one This one,
well, you better wait until you're about 110 years of age if you're going to wait 20,000 days.
I'm going to get there just to collect my $5. And this one I just recently saw. I couldn't help but put it up. This is for all you filth supporters. The Pies are just one more win away from losing another grand final.
And they're favourites to win whoever they play, whether it's Port Adelaide or GWS,
you know
because that's who they're going to be playing.
I just hope Wayne Harms comes out of retirement and sits up in the top deck and pushes the ball back in. That's my dream.
I'll tell you one thing.
Dream.
They certainly put themselves in the best position by winning that qualifying final, because not only do they get the week's rest, but they now have a preliminary final at home at the MCG against an interstate team, and they always tend to struggle a bit on the MCG, those interstate teams. Their only chance of playing a Melbourne team was if St Kilda happened to beat GWS and then followed up the following week and beat Port Adelaide, which was always going to be unlikely. So Collingwood are certainly in the box seat to make a grand final, and you've got to say Brisbane exactly the same. They won their qualifying final, and now they get a week's rest and play another final up at the Gabba, and that has certainly been a fortress for them.
You're talking football when we're not talking about football.
Oh, sorry. Okay,
you got to save that. But we normally have a funny photo at this time.
Okay, what have we got?
But I thought I'd put that up for you guys. Welcome, baby.
You've stretched the photo. Hey, what have you done with the photo of me?
Well,
I look like I've been stretched.
I've tried to make it. No, the picture that you put up on Facebook was a different resolution, but I didn't care about you because I got the lovely Tanya looking sensational, and that's all that matters to me. Yes. Tanya and the baby, you're just an afterthought, Vince. I was going to try and crop you out, but I thought I better not. I thought you'd be upset, but I just
you've certainly made me look. You've made me look a bit thinner, that's for sure.
Well, there you go. So I just thought that I'd put that up for the lovely Tanya, who's probably, I think she'd be ecstatic at being a grandmother. Is this her first grandchild?
Yes, this is her first grandchild, and she's now an Omi, as they say in Dutch. So she's certainly looking forward to life as a grandmother, or as we say in Italy, a nonna. So we'll see what happens. Mm.
Okay, so Vince, now we're going to talk football. But first, we're going to talk about the debacle of a game that happened this morning.
Oh, really? What happened there? Oh, the AFLW. Yeah. Well, actually, this afternoon. It started at 3:00.
Oh, it started in the morning for us. So.
Okay, I'm talking to the majority of our audience who are in Australia and would have watched it this afternoon. If they bothered to watch it. Yes, the North Melbourne Kangaroos in the AFLW smashed our AFLW team 10-6-66 to 1-6. There you go. There's the Devil's number. 6. We got 3 sixes on the screen. 6-6-6.
Do you know that came from a free kick, and it was the Irish girl that kicked it? So no Australian was involved in scoring that goal.
Well, it was a bit lucky. I think they might have given us one just to give us something on the scoreboard, because North Melbourne completely dominated that game. And, I think our women's team has got a little way to go yet.
I
know that they're rebuilding, and they had a good win last week at home against the Gold Coast Suns, but against the top teams, they'll probably still struggle.
Anyway. So let's get on to what you were talking about before. On Thursday night.
Yes, indeed. This was the qualifying final. And what a great game it was. Collingwood ended up scoring 9 goals, 660, 15 scoring shots to Melbourne, who had 18 scoring shots, 7, 11, 53. They were more inaccurate and ended up falling short by 7 points. The one common theme I noticed in all of the finals that were played over the last 4 days is that the team that got out to a little bit of a lead was the one that ended up winning the game. If you got off to a good start, you generally won. I think whoever was in front at quarter time pretty much finished in front at the end of the game. I think that's pretty much a trend right through. So anyway, Collingwood got off to a good start, kicking 4-2 to only 1 goal in the first quarter. Then both teams scored only the 1 goal each in the second quarter. Collingwood going in 5-3-33 to 2-4-16 at halftime, in front by 17 points. Then they kicked 4-1 to Melbourne's 2-5. And I think that's the quarter that really cemented the game for them. They ended up being, 9-4-58 to 4-9-33, a 25-point lead at three-quarter time. Melbourne came back hard in the last quarter, kicking 3-2 to only 2 points, but it wasn't enough, and they fell 7 points short in the end. So
I thought they were extremely lucky, Collingwood, but anyway.
And they were probably a little bit lucky, but Melbourne
they were very
made life
lucky.
hard for themselves.
They're very lucky. And later on, when we get our special guest, Peter Brown, on, I'm going to ask him what he thought of the Maynard incident. We'll talk about that later. Okay, the next game.
Yes, of course, our game was on Friday night, but we'll talk about that last. So yesterday we had another elimination final where we saw the GWS Giants show that their form has been no fluke whatsoever. They're one of the most informed teams in the competition coming into the finals. And they showed why. 15 goals, 11, 101 to St Kilda, a gallant 11-11, 77. They did well to make the finals, but I know I tipped GWS to beat them, and that's exactly what happened. So I think Ross Lyon's got a fair bit to work on there, and they probably need to inject some new players into that team if they're going to go any further than the first week of the finals. But a good season all round, I think, for St Kilda, even though they bow out now.
I think they were lucky to make the 8, but you got to give them credit.
They made it. They made it.
No, their first half of the season was quite good.
Yeah.
And then the third game that we watched, which was a bit of a blowout, I thought this game was a bit of a disappointment, to be honest.
Well, yes, but it was highly entertaining football by Brisbane. I mean, my goodness. At the Gabba, that it really is a fortress for them over there. They ended up kicking 19 goals, 123 to Port Adelaide, 11-9-75, an 8-goal victory, 48 points. And, Port at one stage actually kicked 2 or 3 in a row in the second quarter and took the lead by a couple of points at one stage. But then Brisbane got back 2 or 3 goals like a good side would. And, that was another game that, where the superior team really showed how good they were by the end of it. It was fairly like 3-3 to 1-4 at quarter time. That's 21-10. That was an 11-point lead. Then they kicked 5-1 to Port's 4-2. Again, I'd say Port Adelaide were close enough at half time if they were good enough. It was 8-4-52 to 5-6-36. So a 16-point lead at half time. But then that third quarter was the one that really cemented Brisbane, kicking 8-1 to only 4-3. And Brisbane went in with a 38-point lead at three-quarter time and ended up kicking 3-2 in that last quarter, winning in the end by 48 points. A superior performance by Brisbane, proving their credentials. They now get a week's rest, a home final for the preliminary. And I guess, at this stage of the final series, we're always talking up those two teams that won the qualifying finals as the ones that are most likely to make the grand final. But as we know, things don't always turn out the way we expect.
Exactly. And the game, before we get to the game that we've all wanted, I'll just remove it for a minute. Let me introduce to you our special guest. He's been with us since round 1. I think he's only been managed once, showing that he's still young at heart. He was a 1979 premiership player, and his name is Mr. Peter Brown. Good evening, Peter. How are you tonight?
Good evening, Joe. Good evening, Vince, and good evening to our viewers.
G'day, Brownie. It's good to see you, as always.
Yep.
Pete, show us what you were showing before.
What was he showing you?
This is probably... I was going to actually mention it later on, but this one here is probably the thing that everyone has to play for at the end of the season.
There it is. The 1979 premiership medal. Well done.
Yeah, there you go.
I bet you that takes pride of place in your household somewhere nice and. Is it visible, or have you put it away somewhere very safe so that no one can touch it or get away? Will get their hands on it.
I actually had. It took me about 3 hours to find it the other day. Just was in the back of the cupboard. So
sometimes you can put it away in such a good spot that you actually forget where you put it and you'll never find it again.
Yeah, that's true. That was how they were handed out back in the day. They're now on a lanyard, so they're a little bit different to what they were actually given out on the day. So,
did you wear it on the night of the 79 premiership, Brownie? Did you have it around your neck with your lanyard and all of that? Did you have it hanging around your neck all night?
Well, it wasn't on a lanyard. They were actually handed out in a
brown paper bag.
No, in a box, a little box. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. That's what it was handed out in. So, of course, that was put away.
So you would have given yours straight to your lovely wife?
Yeah, well, it was for safekeeping that evening, I can assure you.
All right.
I wonder how many of those things went missing from some of the other premiership players over the years.
Many, I'm sure.
Well, I think the Dominator actually lost his on the night. So
there you go.
I think the AFL had to strike another one for him.
I hope whoever got it got a good price. Anyway, let us get to Friday evening when, Vince, go for it.
Indeed. Carlton, 11 goals, 874, defeating the Sydney Swans, 9 goals, 14, 68. That's 19 shots to us, 23 shots to them. So they had 4 more scoring shots and lost the game by a goal. So yet again, another example of the winning team scoring, more goals than points, and often the losing team the other way around. So, yes, it was a fantastic win, our first finals win for exactly 10 years, Brownie. Last time we won a final, same date, 8th of September, 2013 against Richmond. Ironically, the team that we played after that was the Sydney Swans, and we lost to them over in Sydney that year. So we've turned the tables on them this time, and if we look at the quarter-by-quarter scores, Carlton kicking 3 goals, 2-20 to Sydney, 1 goal, 5-11 at quarter time. At half time, we were 7-5-47 to 2-6-18. So we'd kicked 7 goals to 2 up until half time. Had a commanding 29-point lead, and you probably would have thought at that stage, Carlton by how much? Then, of course, they turned the tables a bit on us in that second half. They kicked 5 goals, 3 to 3 goals, 1 in the third quarter. So the scores there were 10-6-66 to Sydney, 7-9-51. So they cut the margin back to 15 points. And by the end of the game, they'd scored 2 goals, 5 in that last quarter. Inaccurate kicking to Carlton's 1 goal, 2, and they just fell short. So 11-8-74 to 9-14-68. And, of course, in terms of goal kickers for Carlton, Cottrell 2 and Martin 2. Akers kicked 1. Cripps got 1. Cunningham 1. Doherty 1. Chera 1. Curnow 1. And Owies 1 goal. The main goal kickers for Sydney were Goulden with 2, McDonald with 2, and Parker with 2. So there weren't any major goal kickers. 2 goals was the most scored by anybody. So it was evenly shared around.
Let's get to the stats. You can comment on these. We obviously beat them in disposals, so kicks, handballs, and inside 50s. I thought the Swans were quite wasteful in front of goal, but I thought we were quite wasteful inside 50. Again, with, Harry and Charlie. I think the best thing – I don't know what's wrong with Harry. I don't know how he missed that second goal in front of goals. I mean –
yeah, he was all at sea. Even when he lined up, he looked like his body language was all over the place. In fact, he was trying to compensate for the drop of the ball, and that's how it ended up being a disaster. But realistically, when you've got a bloke that's being paid the amount of money that's getting paid on a regular basis, this is a part of his job. This is a major part of his employment. Now, if he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing as an employment in his employment contract, then as far as I'm concerned, then you should get rid of the bloke. As far as I'm concerned.
You can answer this question later, but someone's saying is Harry a liability? But we'll get to that a bit later. We'll get to that a bit later.
Yeah,
I think some of the more important stats that really did distinguish the two teams, because it was really quite even, as you can see there. Well,
let me get to the stats, Vince. Let me get to them.
Okay.
There's the disposal efficiency, and as I said, I thought we were wasteful in the inside the 50. Look, 34%. That's just not good enough.
19 shots from 56 inside 50s, yeah.
Yeah, they were a lot more accurate going into their 50 than what we were, because we were forced to go down the line, whereas Sydney were able to dominate through the middle of the ground. There were passages of play which allowed Sydney to really control the middle of the ground, and it was only just sheer luck that they were able, or Carlton was able to bloody well repel the attack, and it was only just sheer inefficiency from Sydney on a few occasions that were allowing our Carlton backmen to actually take advantage of that. So, look, the statistics are much of a muchness, to be honest with you.
Well, here's the next one. Have a look at this. The hit-outs, surprisingly, we won. We were getting smashed in the clear. Sorry about this. I've got something in my head.
They're all pretty even, Joe, if you have a look at them.
But we were getting smashed in the clearances at quarter time. It was 14-4 at quarter time. So, and then same the centre clearances. Look, so it's pretty even. Even the stoppages, 27-27. Contested possessions, we won. Uncontested possessions, as Peter says, they sort of dominated that corridor bit and got a lot of loose ball. We had less turnovers. So I don't know if that's good or bad, 78 turnovers. Marks, again, as Pete said, they controlled that corridor. So they sort of chipped it around, and I don't know why we didn't control that. Contested marks, intercepts. And then the last one, tackles, pretty even. Tackles inside 50. I think our forward pressure was good. We'll talk about that later. And the 1%ers.
Yep.
So, gentlemen, rather than saying why did we win or how did we win that game, Pete, go for it.
Well, as Vince indicated before, I think the first quarter set it up for us more than anything else. And we always knew that Sydney were going to come at us regardless of what sort of lead that we had going into some of the breaks. We had more inside 50s in the first quarter than what Sydney did, and then Sydney turned that around in the second quarter and virtually had the dominance in that second quarter going inside 50 but couldn't convert. Interestingly enough, there was a couple of things that stuck in my mind. One of the things that we were trying to do was that we were trying to take the game on by taking a couple of risks. And one that stood out to me was when Newman kicked in from full back and actually turned the ball over. And you could actually see that he dropped his confidence level had dropped. And then from that point onwards, he was shit frightened of making a mistake in any of his disposals. And what we tended to do was that we then tended to be in a situation where we were being safe. And it was going back to that old way that we were playing, which is safety first rather than taking it on. And interestingly enough, I think the forward line was dysfunctional, not functional. It was dysfunctional. And we were particularly more so in that first half of the game, whilst we were scoring, that was only just out of sheer opportunities more than anything else. There wasn't any clear defined authority stamped on the game by our forwards. I thought we were all at sea on a couple of occasions, and it really did start to be a bit of a nuisance for us. The actual two-prong attack with Harry and Curnow did not work on on Friday night. It was simply non-existent, to the point where it started to become a bit of a liability for us. And interestingly enough, the back line tends to be better without McGovern in it, and the forward line tends to be better without Harry in it. So I know that's a bit controversial, but the results are there where in that second half where Harry went down with a glass jaw. I thought our forwards then had to step up, and we had to find another avenue to goal. Charlie was clearly beaten on the night. I thought both McCartan and even Blakey at one stage was on Charlie throughout the evening. Charlie was nowhere near it. And in fact, late in the game, if you recall, that Charlie got a few possessions coming up the ground and presenting rather than be in that scoring zone. So I spoke to Vince about this the other day, but I have some real question marks over how we're going to go into this week's game against Melbourne, particularly more so with their back line as it is with Lever and May and Rivers and these guys that are in pretty good form as to how we're going to be able to score goals if they shut Charlie down as our avenue. So, and of course, naturally now Martin is under a cloud, and Carlton being Carlton will throw all of their resources behind it to try and get Martin off.
I reckon they will. I reckon, but based on how they've gotten 2 Brownlow medalists off striking charges in the last 12 years, they'll probably reverse this to the point where it'll be Blakey.
They'll give him 2 extra games.
Blakey will have to do 2 matches next year.
Yeah,
for being in Jack Martin's way.
Well, the one thing that was really disappointing was that I thought that Sydney were able to springboard out of their back line, and I don't think our forwards, particularly our big forwards, were defensive enough, particularly when Sydney had the ball, and on numerous occasions Blakey was able to bloody well go straight through the middle of the corridor and be able to go into attack, deep into attack, by just sheer running, just sheer gut running. That's all it was. And yet our blokes seem to be standing around flat-footed and not being able to do the defensive role, particularly coming out. It was a different situation if the ball was kicked in long and we were able to make a contest of it and we were able to lock it down, as it was seen in some of the statistics there. But realistically, when it wasn't that and Sydney were able to springboard off that area, it made our forwards look lazy, and that's really disappointing. You can't afford to do that in a final. You can't afford to let backmen run off and be able to create further down the ground. And I thought, and you touched on this the other day, Vince, when I was having a chat to you.
Yeah.
Now, 2 sides now, Sydney and Adelaide, have both now been robbed of an opportunity in going into September. Adelaide was at Footy Park, I believe, over there.
Adelaide Oval.
Adelaide Oval, sorry.
Yeah.
And then again, Sydney were, I reckon it was definitely not touched. So the first one was, I can see the deviation in the ball, but this one clearly to me wasn't it. Now the AFL have bloody well promised that this thing was going to be fixed going into the finals, but clearly it hasn't been. And the other thing that really,
they're using old technology. sorry to interrupt. They're using old technology. They've got to get off their asses and spend some money. I mean, they say they're the most professional organisation in the world, yet they use these bloody shit cameras that you buy at what's he called? That
Aldi?
Dick Smith. Well, how can you have a professional organisation with a fuzzy camera? I mean, I do YouTube shows and our cameras are better than theirs. It's just ridiculous.
I mean, you're going into a situation where, fortunately, we've had 2 games now where we've both been able to fall over the line by the mere fact that, someone said that they touched the ball. And the thing that really probably annoys me is that Carlton still haven't learnt how to not panic in really tight situations. Again, they tried, everyone but the old brown dog behind the ball in that last quarter to try and save the game. It wasn't a game that you could say that they were trying to attack to win. By half time, you rightly pointed out, Vince, they outscored us in the third quarter, and if they'd have converted some of those, that would have put scoreboard pressure back on Carlton. And we were trying to save the game rather than win the game. And that, to me, that it is not a good sign going into now another cutthroat final, and knowing full well that we could be unsettled with our forward line. Obviously, with Martin out, even though I said Harry wasn't worth very much, but at the end of the day, you at least you need that opportunity of having those players available. Now we're going to have to make some real adjustments in that area. There were some good signs. There were some signs like guys like Cottrell, for instance. I thought his work early in the game was exceptional. He hit the scoreboard. He was lively. He was creating opportunities for us and stuff like that. There was a really good return to form from Chera. I thought he was probably our best player on the ground. Walsh toiled really hard all day. And Akers, I've got a real question mark over him going into the Melbourne game. His shoulder is not right, obviously.
And they say he's going to miss.
He's going to miss, is he? Yeah,
that's what they're saying.
Yeah, it's his collarbone. It's his collarbone.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. He looked like he was a one-armed chicken or one-winged chicken running around there in the last quarter. He threw the arm out every now and then just because he had to. But realistically, I could see that he wasn't right. And he, unfortunately, he just started to get some form back, and now we're going to miss his drive and obviously his ability to be able to run on the day. So we've got some real questions to be asked and some real selection dilemmas now as to how we think that this is going to help us against Melbourne. Interestingly enough, I see. Go on. No, I was going to say, interestingly enough, I saw tonight on the news that they reckon that Silvani could be half a chance to come in. No. I would actually go a bit smaller on the day and look for some run and carry rather than go with Silvani to try and bolster it. Both Pitnet and TDK are doing what they need to do. The last time that these sides played each other, I thought De Conning's game was exceptional. So, and he knows how to play the big fella because he used it to perfection last time. So, look,
go on. Sorry, mate.
No.
I just got to say to this Darren Thomas, Akers will be fine. Negative again, Peter Brown. He's not being negative, Darren. He's merely quoting the club saying that Blake Akers will probably miss because of the collarbone. So I'm sure, as Peter will back me up, that he's a bit of a fan of Blake Akers. He played a good game. So let's not jump down people's throats. No one here is negative. We're all being constructive. So obviously this week we're going to miss Harry's out. He has to stay out, doesn't he, for concussion protocol.
Yep.
Jack Martin, I think at best he'll get reduced to 1 week.
Yep.
Right? Let's assume whether he gets 1 or 2, he's going to miss. And the club has come out today and said that Blake Akers is likely not to play. So let's assume that he doesn't. Who do you think comes in for those 3?
Okay, well, in the forward line, for the forward line setup, it's going to be a catch-22. I reckon they'll have to go with the two talls. They'll have to go with Pitnet and TDK. And I reckon that they might even throw TDK down to full forward, maybe, as for a contesting mark situation. I mean, he played a really good game, I thought, on Friday night. He was contesting all over the ground. He hit the scoreboard. He kicked the one, but he was also able to take some telling marks and stuff like that, which is really important. And his follow-up work is getting better and better and better. As I said before, Chera was a welcome return to form. Walsh will probably show some leadership. I thought our skipper was missing in action again. I don't think his work rate was anywhere near where it had to be. And when things got tough, I think he was more hoping rather than controlling and actually directing. So even if you're getting beaten on the day, you can still direct traffic. You can still have an influence on the game or an influence on your players by being able to be either constructive or give someone a spray when they need it. So look. Wiedering, I think you'll find that Melbourne will have a plan for Wiedering. I think they'll put someone, because they've got a problem with Van Ruin. It looks like that he could get rubbed out and could get a week. So they're going to be fairly thin on the ground with their forwards there. But I reckon that they'll try, because what they did was that they put, was it Parker? I think it was. They threw him on to Wiedering in that last quarter. To try and nullify his intercept marking and also the opportunity of him being able to springboard. Our backs were half reasonable. I thought Kemp's work was good early, really good early. And then, they had a couple of brain fades in really crucial times of the game. And, I mean, in a final, you cannot have crucial time fade outs and brain fades and things like that. You've got to be switched on for the 120 minutes that you're out there playing the game. And it was just a little bit worrying there. When Newman got a hit in the gob, I think, or a smack in the mouth. And when that happened, he sort of got up off the ground and ran straight to the bench. And I thought, shit. Yeah. It didn't look like there was any trainer that was coming out to him or anything like that. Now, to me, in a final, when the pressure's on, you can't afford to get up off the ground and run to the bench, because that leaves you one short out on the ground at that particular time. And I just thought that wasn't really smart play. And I'm not sure whether the coaching staff picked up on it or not, but by geez, that's going to make it really awkward. Now, in answer to your question, I think they'll bring Dow and Holland back into the side. I think both of them probably really do deserve a crack at it. And the question mark's going to be over whether you have Fisher or someone like Boyd come into the side.
What about Kennedy possibly in the forward line taking Martin's spot? Would that be another option?
He's not a forward.
He has played forward and taken good, strong marks and kicked goals in the past.
I don't think Kennedy's quick enough, to be honest with you.
No, he's too slow. He's an inside mid. He gets the ball out.
Just thought I'd throw up.
No, you're right. But see what you reckon. And you're right. He can take a grab, and so can Cripps. I mean, if worse comes to worse, I mean, Cripps is like 6'4", 6'5", isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, of course. And he kicked the goal. And he
was 6'4", and he played. Yeah. He was one of the best centre-half forwards around. So we could always rest him up the forward line as well if his work rate isn't as good.
I said earlier in the season that you could probably play Cripps forward because he was sadly out of touch, and leave it to someone like the Cheras and the Dow and the Hewitts and these guys in the middle. as I said, the question mark is going to be over someone like Fisher, whether Fisher comes back into it. And if they do, there's no point putting McGovern forward because we've tried that experiment and that hasn't worked. So I really, and the real question mark I've got over it is that unless Charlie is on, and he's had 2 lean weeks now, so I think he's really got to bloody well pull his finger out and live up to the reputation of the Coleman medal, so that he can actually produce the goods on the day. And I think that he has to step up. I mean, the small forwards, I think they'll leave Motlop in the side. Obviously,
he started as a sub. He started as a sub Motlop, and I was interested to see, Brownie, that they only started with the one small forward being Owies, and he only had 2 kicks and 3 hand passes for the night, and kicked a very fortunate goal that he was going to hand pass to Charlie, and then half changing his mind. And anyway, he was lucky, but he got the goal. But that was about all he did for the night, and Motlop didn't come on until the last quarter and did not get one possession, not a kick, not a hand pass. So our small forwards were almost non-existent on the night. We were relying on medium-sized forwards like Cunningham and Martin and Cottrell, and there's the other one there also. Jack Martin, of course, and Fogarty. So. Yeah, I think we almost had more of a medium-sized forward line apart from the 2 big boys in Curnow and Mackay.
Yes, yeah, and I think you'll find that probably going in against Melbourne, firstly, you need some height up there, whether it be Charlie or whether it be TDK, just to make a contest of it more than anything else. And regardless of our forwards, we can't let them be able to create off the back line like Melbourne like to do. And if they do, and if they don't put the forward line pressure on, then we'll find ourselves being cut up through the middle again.
My personal view about the Melbourne defence is that they do look good especially when the ball is kicked in nice and high and they can set up. Lever and May generally take a lot of marks and intercept marks. I reckon if we played a really small forward line and brought in a lot of the small blokes like Motlop and Owies, and maybe even throw Corey Durden or someone like that in there, or rest Paddy Dowd in the forward line, we might be able to get away with actually kicking a lot of chaos balls into the forward line. Balls that are not going to go nice and high in the air and looping over like hospital passes. I'm talking about kicks that get basically just thrown onto the boot and let the ball bounce around and let those little blokes go to work, because the Melbourne defence is a lot taller and they don't have too many short blokes, maybe apart from a little one like Bowie. He's about the only one I can think of that's a short one.
I think one of the things that we didn't do well on Friday night was that going into the forward line, we never lowered our eyes properly.
No.
We were all at sea. We were putting it up high and wide and stuff like that, and that created more opportunity for Sydney to be able to lock it in rather than or get the stoppages, rather than us being able to use it for an opportunity going into the forward line. Interestingly enough, I think I said this too the other day, Vince, that Carlton reverted back to that game that was the kick down the line rather than looking inside to be able to break it open. On the odd occasion that we were able to clear the centre bounce and do it easily, we looked really good. But we were moving and running forward rather than trying to create something out of nothing. And it was a strange game because I thought that Sydney controlled the centre yet didn't score properly. We didn't control the centre yet we went around the boundary line and kicked down the line, and we were still able to win the game. So I thought, I think our wingers were a big reason why we got goals on the board. I mean, it was the incredible work backwards and forwards. You could see
Cottrell, Akers, these sorts of guys were running constantly backwards and forwards across the ground and often were on the end of it kicking goals.
Yeah. And there was a couple of instances where Cottrell was just in the right spot at the right time to be able to provide that opportunity. And if he'd have continued on with his early form in the game, he would have just about been best on the ground for mine. He was really provided some real spark. Obviously, they tightened up on him, which meant that it had to come from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Akers was working really strongly backwards and forwards, so he was able to get back and assist the backs, but also get forward and try and create something forward. And
yet Goulden still played a fantastic game for them.
Absolutely.
And he's on a wing as well. It's almost like the wingers were playing wide of each other, and our wingers had a lot of the ball, their wingers had a lot of the ball.
Well, one of the best on the ground for Sydney was McLean.
He was brilliant.
He took something
like well.
He took 12 marks. In fact, I noticed on the night how good was Sydney in the air. They took a lot of one grab marks that our players just didn't seem to be able to take.
No. And I said last week that Harry had concrete hands, and they didn't seem to bloody well improve very much early in the game.
Yeah.
This was even before he got knocked. He had the accident that knocked him out. But I don't know whether his hands are just going into flat or whether he's not being able to create, the buffer that you need to take the ball at pace.
I think it's a confidence thing, Brownie. He hasn't been his normal self since he came back from injury. You know how they were expecting him not even to come back until well into the finals? Yeah. Well, he came back 2 weeks before the finals.
Yeah.
But he just has not looked right, has he? He has not looked his usual, confident self, and he's gone back into his shell again.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he definitely has. And you can tell that he's not right in the way he's moving, just by the sheer fact that he's not creating like he was doing. And his timing of his run and jump is terrible. There were real signs there at one stage that he was timing his run at the ball really well, but now it seems to be that he's not timing his run correctly. If I was Carlton, I would start Curnow up the ground on Friday night. I reckon.
He played a lot better. He played a lot better on Friday night against Sydney when he started going up the ground. He started taking some really good marks. In fact, I mentioned about Sydney's marking. I think probably Curnow towards the end was one of the only shining lights in terms of taking really decent marks. But he was on the wing. He was on the wing when he was marking them, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that it looks absolutely spectacular is when he takes a mark and then wheels and go. When he takes a mark, wheels and then fluffs it, it looks like a real absolute.
Yeah. He did do that on one occasion, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And the other thing that was interesting, I don't know whether you noticed this or not, Vince, but I know we had a little bit of rain, but again, there were players slipping over at crucial times in the game. And
George Hewitt, especially,
there was a bit of drizzle at one stage. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely, and
nothing too heavy, but it just made the surface a bit slippery, and some of the boys were slipping over all left, right, and centre.
Well, Sydney
Sorry, I
was just going to say Sydney seemed to adapt to that a lot easier than what we did.
Yeah.
So look, we won the game, so
we did.
All kudos. Can we beat Melbourne? And if so, how do we beat Melbourne?
Okay, well, the important thing here to consider is that Melbourne are depleted within their forward line, although they do have players that can bolster their ranks. Some of them haven't played for a while. I'm talking about the Grundys. I'm talking about the Browns. I'm talking about these types of guys.
Maybe even Shaki, the one that they got from the Bulldogs.
Yeah, well, there was mention of if they went short, it'd be Spargo. And obviously he's a proven finals player because he was in their last
premiership player.
Yep. So I think that's the important thing to consider. I think you'll find that Melbourne's midfield, Petrarca and
Oliver.
Oliver, and also
Viney.
Viney, that's it. Sorry, again, senior moment, guys.
That's all right.
They were, I won't say beaten, but they certainly didn't dominate the game against Collingwood.
No.
So, and I think you'll find that they've got something to prove, that midfield. And I know they're going to be without Brayshaw, and I know, Joe, you were going to ask me about that, so just keep that thought for a sec. But the one thing that our forward line has to do is be able to shut down their attacking thrusts from their back line and their intercept stuff. So there's going to be a big job now being asked of guys like Doherty, Chera, Walsh, even Cripps in the mids to be able to nullify that and be able to stamp their authority on the game. As I said, I think they'll put someone on Wiedering and try and nullify his influence on the game. And if they do, that means guys like Kemp and Newman have got to step up. Although, as I said before with Newman, he doesn't have to drop his head every time he makes a mistake like that. I've always maintained if you're going to make a mistake, make sure it's a bloody good one rather than, a half-hearted one, because, half-hearted ones look stupid rather than, he screwed up. And I still think that our big guys like Pitnet and TDK can nullify the influence of Gawn on the day. And interestingly enough, I don't know whether you caught the Collingwood game, but they started off with the big fella Cox in the middle. And as soon as the first bounce come along, Cox just absolutely poleaxed Gawn. And that actually quietened him down for, I think Cox's first 15 minutes of the game was sensational. I thought he was actually quite dominant as the big man on the ground.
I'll be honest with you here. Now I'm going to stick my neck out. I think Melbourne, the reason why Melbourne did not win that game is because they were not daring enough. They weren't prepared to take risks. They tried to play too safe. And even at the selection table, I think it would have been the perfect opportunity to put Brodie Grundy in that team and nullify the twin tower effect of Mason Cox and Darcy Cameron. Why they expect that Max Gawn to do all of that work on his own for an entire game, I don't know. Because I think you're right. I think they took the wind out of him, and in the end, he played a good game, but he wasn't dominant. And I think that's where Melbourne lost the game. They weren't prepared to take some risks and be daring enough.
Well, but they usually play that Van Ruin as the second ruck. He normally when Gawn wants, but that's what they do when he wants a rest.
I know, but he's not. He's only a young kid who's probably barely ever played ruck in his life.
Yeah, no. He's a bit like a Silvani type, filling type thing. The other two that I haven't mentioned is Hunter and
Langdon.
Langdon, sorry, yes.
The two wingers.
Wings, yeah. Now, Akers, if he's going to be out, that means then that Cottrell and possibly Holland will probably have a big job on their hand. I'd say Cottrell will probably go to Langdon, and I reckon that Holland will go to Hunter and try and nullify their influence, because they actually use them quite a lot with their forward thrusts, and Langdon provides the run and carry, and Hunter's a pretty smart player. Even though he's getting up in age, he's still a smart player, and he's able to be creative on his left side. So I think that I think Carlton's got a real challenge on their hands this week, and that is really going to be one of those things that is going to be won and lost through the selection committee, and how they're actually coached on the day, and how they can actually be able to either nullify or be able to create opportunities throughout the game. And I think that's going to be a real thing that's going to come into question on the day.
I think Melbourne's going to have a bit of a dilemma of their own with Brayshaw being out. they would dearly love to play Petrarca forward because they just need some goal kickers, and he is a bit of a goal kicker when he goes forward. They may not be able to have the luxury of playing him forward this week. They might just have to play him in the midfield a lot more to cover the loss of Brayshaw. I don't see how else they can do it. And they're going to need some goals. They're going to need big games from guys like Cozzy Pickett and even a guy like Sparrow, Bailey Fritsch. You know, these are the guys that are going to need to be on their absolute best games in order to beat us. I personally think they're going to struggle. They're looking down the barrel at going out in straight sets for the second year in a row. To lose yet another key forward. I mean, that's the third key forward that they will lose in about 4 weeks. They lost Harrison Petty, who was in red-hot form, kicking 6 goals in one game.
Yeah,
Then they lost Melksham. Melksham they lost. He's a consistent goal kicker against Carlton, and he's gone to a knee injury. And now Van Rooyen, I mean, Simon Goodwin must be filthy on Van Rooyen for getting suspended because he can ill afford to do without tall key position players in his forward line. So I think the Melbourne forward line is going to be struggling like hell to kick goals. And I really do believe that we should be able to get the better of them and potentially even run away with this game and leave them flat-footed. I can see us actually winning this game quite comfortably, to be honest.
Well, what about their defenders? Because May and Lever are two of the best defenders in the league.
Yeah, but it's also, and by the way, the weather forecast, gentlemen, is very warm weather towards the end of this week. We're expecting 25 and 26 degrees during the day and, 14 or 15 degrees at night on both Thursday and Friday night. So unless something dramatic changes, we're in for actually warm weather for a change on Friday night. Which will mean that the ball doesn't spend as much time on the ground as it would have last week. But still, I believe Carlton's best chance is to go smaller in the forward line and try and test Melbourne's defence with the ball on the ground a lot more. I think it's a night where we should try and get our small forwards to go to work in a big way.
Yeah, I agree.
Is there any way we could move McGovern up forward to take over a forward position?
No.
No, he hasn't done it all year, Joe. Why would you do that now in the finals?
No, I'm just asking.
Yeah.
If there would be anyone that I would bring in as a forward, would be Lewis Young. He would be the selection of a forward because he actually came to us as a forward and from the Doggies, and he might be able to provide a contest up forward rather. Surely
Silvani though is the one who has been out for a lot less time. I mean, Lewis Young hasn't probably played in the seniors for a good 2 or 3 months. Silvani's been out for maybe a month. So I think he can very, very quickly slot in there and take up the slack that's left by Harry Mackay. And there's one thing about Silvani that 100%, and that is that he will give 100% every time he goes out there.
I understand where you're coming from, Vince, but we're in a final here. It's a cutthroat final, right?
Yeah.
So let's not get too carried away with there's no sentiment in football, particularly when it comes to final series.
I'm not suggesting anything based on sentiment. I'm basing it on Silvani's role has always been as a high half forward who can take marks up on the half forward flank around the 50-metre line and up around the wing. And I think that's the position that Harry's been playing a lot more of lately. And if you leave Curnow down in the goal square, Silvani can play that role across half forward.
I'd be more inclined.
And also TDK, when he's not rucking, he can go down, as you mentioned before, Brownie. He can also play tall up forward.
I'd be more inclined to let Curnow control up around centre half forward. And halfway between wing and centre half forward in that area there, and let us go to work down in deep rather than have that situation occur.
Would you leave TDK in the goal square, Brownie?
Absolutely.
And let Charlie work up the ground.
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%.
Fair enough.
100%. Because that will then allow the small forwards to go to work, particularly in and underneath TDK's ability to be able to make a contest of the game.
Okay. Well, it'll be interesting to see who indeed the selection committee put their faith in going into this game. I have a sneaking suspicion that they'll bring JSOS back into the team somehow. Anyway, we'll soon see.
I think they'll bring in probably either Dow for Martin, and I think they'll probably bring JSOS in. And if Akers is out, they'll probably bring in Hollands.
Yeah, I'd say more than likely Dow and Hollands, definitely. The question mark is over whether it's going to be a mid forward or whether it'll be a small forward.
Maybe someone like Zach Fisher might make his way back into the team.
Well, Zach Fisher...
it's not like he was in bad form before he got left out of this side.
No, absolutely not. It was just the mere fact that they brought back McGovern, who's just signed another 2-year. You said to me at the time, Vince, at a considerably reduced rate compared to what it has been. Interestingly enough, I've got a mate that lives in Adelaide, and he has a very strong opinion about McGovern's ability to be able to perform in big games, and he wasn't all that kind with his comments about what
he made. He made a bit of a clunker out of one on Friday night. As a matter of fact, he didn't exactly cover himself in glory with one particular pass, did he?
Yeah, and look, honestly, everyone was going into the game with this thought in their mind that Carlton didn't have any finals experience, etc., etc., etc. Well, realistically, if you looked at the game and analysed it, right through the game, you would say that they really didn't play and look like they were a side that had finals experience. To be honest with you, I mean, in that last quarter, it was evident that they panicked. In that last quarter, they were hoping to win rather than create the win. And they
were trying to hold on. They were trying to save the game rather than win the game.
Absolutely, absolutely. And look, I still think that Carlton may get up, and I've said it all along that we've had now the opportunity to be able to play Sydney. Sydney's a side that came at us and came at us and came at us. They were able to withstand. So I still think that we're able and still capable of winning the game against Melbourne. I question whether we are going to be capable of the next step, but particularly with this step, I think we've still got the momentum, if you want to call it, to be able to achieve the win on the night. So I'll go with Carlton.
I'm interested to hear your comments about we didn't look like a team that had much finals experience. I would venture to say that while I agree with that overall generalisation, the players that really stepped up for us were the ones that actually did have some.
Yeah.
Because I really think that Chera, having played at Fremantle in at least one or two finals, as well as Akers, who also had played at Fremantle in finals. Sard played a very good game. I think he might have played a final or two with Essendon. Hewitt, another former Sydney Swans player, he played well, and so did Newman, who kept Tom Papley goalless. So I think he might have only kicked one. Did he kick one? I think he might have kicked one. But basically, blanketed Tom Papley, who's a very dangerous player. So they're the players that have had a little bit of experience in the past. And I think that they all came to the fore on Friday night. We're probably fortunate that we did have that sprinkling of players who had been in a finals team in the past.
Yeah, but like I've said on numerous occasions, it's not those players that are actually going to win the game. It's the ones that are bloody well, the non-names, if you want to call them, the guys that haven't had that experience, that need to do all the hard stuff, all the 1%ers and all of that sort of thing, that are able to get you over the line. Any given time, you've still got to have 14 or 15 winners on the night.
Of course, I understand that. All I'm saying is that the ones that had a sprinkling of finals experience, I thought generally were our better players on the night anyway. All right.
Hey, going back to the game, I forgot to do this. We got into the Melbourne game. Let's do our votes.
Yes.
So, Mr. Brown, go.
Yes, well, obviously, clearly a return to form for Chera. I thought his work all night was exceptional. He actually looked tough, I thought, on not from the point of view of being a bruiser or anything like that, but I just thought he stamped his authority on the game. Walsh, he came back to some sort of form. The week before, I thought he lowered his colours, but this week I thought his work rate was a lot better. He was more inconspicuous, I think, about his work on Friday night than he was flashy or anything like that. So I thought his work rate was really good. And then obviously Akers on the wing was really, really good all night. I mean, towards the end of the game where his wing got hurt again, I thought that quietened him down. But I thought for at least the 3 quarters that he was working up and down the wing, I thought he did some really good work. I did mention Cottrell earlier in the podcast. I thought he faded towards the end of the game. I thought he's probably halfway through third quarter, and his last quarter wasn't as good. I nearly had him on par for votes earlier in the game, but a special mention to Cottrell. I thought his work was really good, and he provided. And I said it very early on when Cottrell actually came into the side. He reminds me a bit like Robinson. He's the redhead thing happening and all that sort of thing, and he's not frightened. So I didn't put him in the votes, but a special mention to him. So I've got Chera on 3, Walsh on 2, and 1 for Akers.
And Vince, I've turned this around. I've put my votes under your name and your votes under my name. I'm sorry, I did this.
I noticed, Joe. But one of our shows wouldn't be one of our shows without you making some sort of blue like that.
I did this at 2:00 in the morning, so I apologise.
That's all right. So everyone, if you didn't understand what Joe was just getting at, where you see Bangkok Joe, it actually should be me. So my votes, in fact, were Adam Chera. I thought he was clearly our best player on the ground. Basically ran at about 80% disposal efficiency, which was excellent for that amount of possessions or disposals. A third of his possessions were actually contested, and he had 7 score involvements as well, and also laid 7 tackles and got 3 clearances and put the ball inside 50 on 5 occasions. I thought it was an excellent all-round game by Adam Chera, and he can be certainly pleased with his game and back in form after being out for a few weeks with that hamstring complaint. But I made him my best man on the ground. I went for Adam Sard, in fact, got my 2 votes. I really believe that he was largely responsible in that last quarter for constantly repelling the ball back. It was coming in that often, and yet he was repelling. I think he had 8 rebound 50s, Brownie, and most of those would have been in the last quarter. He went at 78% disposal efficiency for his 23 disposals, which, by the way, most of them were kicks. 21 of those 23 were kicks. And 5 score involvements. He took 7 marks, laid 3 tackles. You know, he just played a very good game, I thought, and was largely responsible for us holding up in that last quarter when the Sydney Swans were really coming hard at us. Those 8 rebound 50s really tell the story as far as Adam Sard's game was concerned. And I gave my 1 vote to Cottrell. I thought he played an excellent game. I look for players that have impact on the contest, not necessarily just possessions. And I thought even though he got 17 disposals, nothing in the 20s, he was very, very effective. In fact, he went at 94% with his disposals. Only 1 out of his 17 was deemed ineffective. And that's a fantastic disposal efficiency percentage, 94%. And And, of course, he had 7 scoring involvements, including 2 goals himself. And I just thought he played a fantastic game along that wing. He was constantly running backwards and forwards. 1 minute he's in defence, the next minute he's bobbing up in the forward line and kicking goals. And I don't know that you can ask much more from your wingers than that. I put him ahead of Akers because Akers went at 50%. Even though he was excellent, he only went at 50% disposal efficiency. I thought he still played a very good game, and he saved us on a couple of occasions with efforts that meant that the ball was touched across the line, which prevented Sydney from getting goals. But he was certainly in my top 5, Akers, as far as I was concerned. If I had to give a top 5, he would have come in 4th and probably Walsh in 5th. But you can't put them all in.
No, you're right.
And sorry, I'm playing the phone. I had Blake Akers. I thought he was best on the ground because he touched the 2 balls, and John Longmire was whinging. And after the game, it was all right the week before. He loved the arc. This week, it's the worst thing ever. Well, that's what I've got to say to you. 2 votes. I thought Chera, for the reasons that you guys said, he's been a great pickup. And I thought Sam Walsh battled hard all day. You know, he probably helped our centre clearances. So we're going to have a leaderboard for the finals. Hopefully we'll get at least another 2 games. So we've got Adam Chera out on front on 8, Blake Akers on 4, Sam Walsh 3, Adam Sard 2, and Matty Cottrell on 1 vote. And now it is
Adam Sard on 3 there.
Hey?
Yeah, Adam Sard on 3 there, didn't you?
Yeah.
I was the only one who gave him votes.
Sorry, it should be 1. Again.
Should be 2. Should be 2.
Didn't at 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the morning. Anyway,
another mistake.
It's now time for...
Beautiful kick from Brown. That's a magnificent kick. Look at that. He was inside the centre square when he kicked that for a goal.
Yes, boys.
Hang on. I've lost it. Oh, hang on. And this week's winner is...
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah, I couldn't go past the big fella. I thought his work rate's just getting better and better and better, and I am so pleased that they actually did re-sign this bloke because I think he's going to be a big part of what our side's going to do moving forward. His work rate, and I highlighted earlier in the podcast about the fact that it's not only his ruck work, but it's his follow-up work that is really impressive for such a young man. He's starting to show maturity beyond his years. And you look at his face when he's actually playing and he really wants to be a part of the contest. You know, early in the season when there was that much controversy in and around whether he would go here, whether he would go there, I think that was weighing quite heavily on the young man. Well, now I think that's actually been put behind him and he can go about his business and go about his work rate that he needs to do. And as I said, I think he's going to be a big part of our plans moving forward. He works really well with Pitnet. Someone made the comment about the fact that Melbourne and Grundy, when they were using the 2 big men as a dual attack in the ruck, didn't work. I thought the way that we use both Pitnet and the big fella in TDK, I think that is a successful operation, and I think we can use that as a springboard moving forward. I think that this young bloke's only going to get better and better and better. So TDK for mine.
There you go. Okay, so next week we have 2 games. The first game played on Friday night. Melbourne with the home ground, supposedly the home ground advantage because they finished higher, but we play our games at the MCG, so it shouldn't be an advantage. At 7:50 p.m. Now, we've gone through some ins and outs. People are asking what you think about Maynard, Martin, and Van Roon. We'll go through those in a minute. But, boys, the second game is Saturday evening, Port Adelaide versus the Giants. at the Adelaide Oval at 7:40. If I go back to the first game, let's go for a tip. And why and by how much? Pete, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I reckon the first probably 10 or 15 minutes of this game is going to be a game of settle. Who settles the best in the competition, and who's able to get on the scoreboard early. So I'm tipping that Carlton will win this game, but only win it by a small margin. The point that you made earlier, Vince, about the fact that it's going to be pretty warm, so it's going to be fairly humid, I'd say, at the ground, I think will take a toll on the performance of people being able to run. And this is where I think people like Dow and Hollands will come into their own, purely and simply because they've had the week off and they'll be able to use that as fresher legs. And I think we'll be able to use that to advantage. The comments that we made in and around the Melbourne forward line is still fairly relevant. Our backs have got to use that to our advantage. And I think if we take more risks going through the middle of the ground, I think we'll be able to control that, which means it will give our small forwards more opportunity, providing that we lower our eyes going into the forward line and use that as an opportunity to score. So I'm going for Carlton, but I'm going for them for 10 points for the game.
Okay. Vince, go.
Well, before I give you my tip for the game, what I would like to ask is, do we agree that there should be a home ground advantage? I mean, one thing I noticed on Friday night was that the whole game felt like a Carlton home game. Is that the way it works, even in finals?
Well,
so does that mean that Melbourne should be entitled to have the home game this week and everything, all of the bells and whistles and the scoreboard and everything else that happens should be all red and blue?
Well, they finished higher.
I don't know. I don't understand why this is the case when it comes to finals. I mean, you're on an even keel.
Well, then why are we playing in Brisbane on the other day? And why are we playing?
Well, the same thing. That's the same thing. I mean, Brisbane against Port Adelaide yet again. Whenever one of their players kicks a goal, they put on all that rubbish music. I'm not saying the venue. The venue's fine. Give them the home ground venue, but it just feels like one of those home team home and away games. I don't know that that's appropriate in finals. That's the only point I'm making is that I just don't know that that's really appropriate in finals.
Well, the question's going to be, where would you play it if you didn't play it at the MCG? You're going to be
I'm not saying the venue, Browning. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be at the MCG or that, Brisbane shouldn't be playing at the Gabba or, of course, the venue, yes. I'm talking about all of the home ground style lighting and sounds and music and all of that sort of business. I mean, even on Friday night, I noticed when Sydney came out, they played their song, they went through the banner, and then when Carlton came in, it was like the whole bloody stadium was about to erupt.
Well, it's a bit like Brisbane, though, isn't it? I mean, every time Harley Cameron kicks a goal, they're playing that stupid song that comes up all the time.
That's what I mean. I just don't know that they should be doing that sort of thing during a final series. It's just me thinking that it's a little bit too skewed to the home team. That's all I'm saying.
The thing that I actually look at is I'm looking at it slightly different here. The more opportunity the Carlton Football Club get to play on this ground, the more and more that they're going to get used to playing on that ground.
Of course,
and if they are lucky enough to actually be able to get to the last day in September, then they're going to have at least 3 games on that ground if they're lucky enough to get there. So from that point of view, I see that as an advantage and not as a disadvantage. So they could use that and turn that from a negative to a positive very, very easily. And I think that that will give them a better opportunity to understand what is required, particularly in the last day in September.
Yeah. See, for example, I mean, the 2 preliminary finals, Collingwood and Brisbane at the moment, Now, let's just assume for a second that both of those teams win through. Does that mean Collingwood's going to get a home ground, advantage on grand final day? Are they going to get the same sort of
grand
pizzazz?
final's the only one? No, the grand final's different.
Oh, it's different, is it? Oh, but the other finals don't matter.
Vince,
no, I don't agree.
It's been like this for years. I don't know why all of a sudden that.
Well, all I'm saying, Joe, is that it just occurred to me the other night that all of the aesthetics, if you want to call it that, were all heavily geared towards the home teams, and I just thought that when you're meant to be playing finals and a finals series, I think that's over the top. By all means, the home team should have the final played at their venue, but that doesn't mean that all the aesthetics ought to be skewed in their favour as well. Anyway, I'm sure you'll see it on Saturday night. You'll see it with Port Adelaide as well. They'll do the usual thing by playing Never Tear Us Apart by INXS and all that. So, I guess that's the way it's going to be. Anyway, it's just a little point I wanted to make about the aesthetics I noticed on Friday night. Anyway, going into this game, it's going to be the Melbourne. That's what we're going to be witnessing more than anything on the scoreboard by the looks of it. They're the home team this time. So I've got to say the Carlton faithful, though, didn't they turn up in numbers on Friday night? And I'm sure that they'll do the same thing this Friday night, whether it's meant to be a Melbourne home game or not. They've been absolutely incredible. The noise that they've made, even the players have commented in their press conferences about the noise. And this chant that they've produced now, I think basically stems from soccer. I think Melbourne Victory might even use this chant when they play. I could be wrong, but you know the one I'm talking about, Joe?
No, what's the chant? Oh yeah, that's football. They do that all over the world.
Well, they've obviously decided to embrace it at Carlton. I know that the club also sent out some memos to the social media channels, such as Blue Abroad, for example, and asked them to promote it and to get everyone to start chanting it and singing it and all the rest of it and get right behind it. It's all in line with the new catchphrase that they're using together. Was it Stronger Together at the moment? So
and Lisa, you're right. It is the Seven Nation Army. Yeah.
So they're obviously trying to promote this sort of thing, and it'll probably become part of every Carlton home game for the next, 150 years. So
Vince, I've asked you who's going to win, and you've done everything but tell me who's going to win.
Well, I told you before. I said Carlton would win, and I said that they'd win by 5. I said they'd win by 5 goals. I think that they would comfortably run away with this one. I think it'll be a tight game for 3 quarters, but I think they'll break Melbourne's back in the final quarter and run away with it. Carlton by 29 points. There you go.
All right. Now I think Carlton by 36 points.
Okay.
Hey, and now let's get to the next game. Quickly, in a word.
Yeah, interesting. On I like the Giants. I actually said a couple of weeks ago they're coming home with a wet sail, and
my word.
their work rate. And did you see the comments that Toby Green made after the game? I thought that was really, really relevant to the way that the Giants are playing.
Why don't we share that with our viewers?
Well, and you may correct me with some of the wording here, and it's in and around this. It's not the most talented side that I've actually played with, but it's the most committed, I think he did say, or it was the something like that. And I thought, gee, that was really relevant coming from the skipper. And it wasn't to bag him; it was just to say that whilst we have had better sides in the past, and some of those players have gone on and played with other clubs, obviously. And the interesting thing is that they were able to win against St Kilda. Cornelio wasn't playing, and they expect him back this week. So that's another huge in for them. And I'm actually tipping the Giants to win this game. I think they're actually going to overcome Port Adelaide, even though it's got the home advantage, etc., home ground advantage, etc., etc. Port Adelaide have got some big injuries just at present, and that's going to hurt them. That's going to really.
They desperately need Charlie Dixon back in that side, don't they, Brownie? They really miss his presence up in the forward line.
Marshall works hard, but he's a different player when Charlie's there. I mean, the pressure seems to go off Marshall and goes on to Dixon. And then Dixon, takes that role of being the mountain and all that sort of thing. Then Marshall and I just can't think of his name.
Ollie Lord had a really good game. In fact, I thought he kicked 4 goals? 4 or 5 goals?
Yeah. But who's the other? There's the other guy that's the forward for Port Adelaide. Where's number 11?
You mean Finlayson?
Finlayson. Both of them.
He was terrible.
They seem to play a lot better when Charlie's in front of goals rather than them having to be the key forward. So, as I said, I think I like Giants, and I did say that a couple of weeks ago that I thought they were coming home with a wet sail. So I'm going to tip the Giants to beat Port Adelaide over there.
Vince,
I really like the Giants too. I think it'll be a lot closer because of the fact that it is in Adelaide, and I think the Port Adelaide crowd will get behind them, and they'll throw everything at it because they won't want to go out in straight sets. But you're right, Brownie. All of the indicators look like that both Port Adelaide and Melbourne are limping to the line after their first finals. They're going to have players that are out, players that are injured. And they're going to have to really regroup in quick time to overcome their opponents this week in Carlton and GWS respectively. I think that young ruckman as well for GWS. Briggs. He's a beauty. I mean, the battle that he had with Marshall from St Kilda was brilliant. I thought that the two of them could both hold their heads up high. They both played very good games for their teams, but Briggs is a really good ruckman. I don't think Scott Lycett is up to beating him. Look, I think it'll be close, but I think GWS has got some real steel about them. So, I think that they could get over the line as well. So I'm going to go for GWS by 4 points. Toby Green's number. How's that?
Yeah, well, I think the one thing also is that they're going in chock full of confidence too. I mean, a
lot of belief.
They've got a real belief in their opportunity here, and I think that they will be able to take advantage of that.
And they've really bought in, haven't they? You can see that that's a team that's all committed, determined, and they've bought into the game plan that Adam Kingsley has given them. And, I think after a slow start to the season where they were all getting used to each other and used to him and used to his game plan, I think we said from round 10 onwards, I think they were 3 wins and 7 losses from memory after 10 rounds. And then they've, I think, won something like 11 out of their last 13 games.
But I think you made a very relevant point some weeks ago, Vince, that they've had better sides, but they've underachieved, and they're going into this final series with a wet sail, as I said.
Yeah.
But also guys like Callum Ward, for instance, he's been really important to them in the later half.
Experienced.
Absolutely.
He gives them the experience that Pendlebury gives Collingwood, for example.
Yes. Yeah, and Tom Green, for instance, I mean, he's having a stellar year. Cornelio's reinvented himself. All of these players.
Josh Kelly, Lachlan Whitfield. These guys all played in probably more talented sides who, might have had the Dylan Shields and the, guys like that playing in the side in years gone by that have since left them. But this team seems to be a more committed side together, and they gel quite well. I'm impressed, and even the way they beat us 2 weeks ago, you couldn't help but be impressed with the way they went about it.
I think the one thing that's actually coming through for me, and this has been reflected in the guy getting the captaincy of the All-Australian side, is that Toby Green has disciplined himself enormously. Even the other day, he was tested and he was able to. Whoop, we've lost Vince, I think. Oh no, there he is. He was tested, and it was on the wing where the interchange was. And I don't know whether you noticed or not, but Kingsley was right on the boundary line. And as this bloke's in Toby's face, all the words was calm, calm, calm. And that's all that Kingsley said. And Toby, you could see he wanted to rip his head off, but then he just think to himself, I'm the captain of this side. I've got to show some leadership.
Yes, my word.
And he was able to just take it back a notch and show his leadership and his maturity. So I thought that was really, really important.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, look, I'll be very surprised if they don't give a very, very good account of themselves. I'm aware that they got beaten, I think, quite badly, really. I think they got beaten up by about 50 points over in Adelaide by Port a few weeks ago. It was the end of a very long run of wins that they had. They came up against Port, and I think they had a few outs that day, and they got taken to the cleaners that particular match. But that was a home and away game. This is a final. I reckon they'll show what they're made of on Saturday night. Look, I'm going for the upset here. I think it'd be a great story for GWS if they made it through to a prelim. Port Adelaide, I think defensively they need a lot of work. They let through 19 goals against Brisbane, and I just don't think you can do that in finals. Tom Jonas is gone. They also had a lot of injuries. I think Trent McKenzie went down with another injury as well. So they're going to be like the walking wounded. Melbourne a little bit similar. So, I think losing those qualifying finals takes it out of you, and I don't think too many sides lose their first qualifying final and come back and win a premiership. I don't think that's happened too often.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, I'm glad you gave a brief tip. I'd hate to see an in-depth tip. It's gone for about 10 minutes.
Oh, well, we're here to discuss the matches, Joe. I mean,
don't ask questions.
Carlton.
You don't want to know the answer. Don't ask questions.
Do you know what my tip for that game is?
There you go.
Who gives a shit? It's not Carlton. There you go.
All right.
Now you were going to ask me
Carlton, fuck the rest. Isn't that what Stick said?
Yeah. That's when you've got the piece of silver above your head.
Yes, exactly.
Well, they haven't got it either.
If you don't respect your competition, they'll come back and bite you in the backside.
Bugger. Okay, before we get rid of Pete, I want you to go through the suspensions. Maynard, is it a football act? Did he mean it? Does he get suspended? What's your view?
Let's just assume that you're in charge of the tribunal hearing.
You're Michael Christian.
It's your decision.
If it was my decision, I would say no. I wouldn't rub him out, purely and simply based on the fact that whilst he was careless, I don't think there is any way that he could have stopped his body with the momentum through the air as it was. Obviously it was made worse because Brayshaw has now got a concussion and he's had a history of that, of which he's apparently struggling with the recovery on that, and I wish him well. I don't like to see anybody get hurt, but I think, we all know that Maynard can be reckless sometime, but I think the mere fact that, and if you look at the footage, it actually looks worse from the side-on view than it does the front-on view. And it does, and I did notice and pick up that Brayshaw actually looked at Maynard coming and tried to he tried to turn out of it and actually be able to protect himself. So I'm hoping that maybe that when they go to a tribunal and they test this, that they're able to show that footage. And I just picked up on it just briefly as to he was trying to protect himself. He couldn't. Maynard's obviously his trajectory and the momentum was in the wrong place. He did try and turn out of it, which meant that he was trying to avoid it. I know that Melbourne's up in arms about it and everything like that. But and I think there was one in the Carlton game, and I'm not sure who that was. Someone actually jumped at Martin, I think it was, when he had the ball. And I thought, that's not a dissimilar piece of footage than what it was with Maynard. However, the outcome was different. Anyway, Joe, sorry, the next one.
No, Vince, what do you think?
I don't think Maynard had any other intention when he ran towards Brayshaw than to try and smother the ball, because his motion with his arms was out in front of him trying to smother.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, because he launched himself as high as he could up in the air, then he was in a position where, with the ball having gone out of his arm's reach, he then basically had no control over where he was going to land or how he was going to land, and he was going straight for the other player. And to try and protect himself, probably, he's ended up turning his body, but that very turning motion is what did the damage, and that now constitutes a bump, and it's ended up causing a concussion in the other player, and he's going to be out probably for the rest of the series. Now, it'll be interesting to see what interpretation the tribunal puts on this. I don't think there was any intent, and therefore, and my initial thought was that if you do a motion like that and it causes the other player to be concussed, you should be rubbed out. Because if he's going to be out for a couple of weeks, that's probably what should happen to you. But I don't believe that there was any intent there.
I wonder whether the outcome would have been different if the ball had been smothered. I just wonder whether that would have played a bigger part.
Well, that's right.
Because then that becomes a smother on the ball rather.
Yeah, and the ball probably gets between the two of them.
Well, it's quite possible it could do. Or that could have caused Brayshaw to be in a different position than what he was, and the clash mightn't have taken place. So that's the only other thing that I would throw in there as a factor.
I think though they've got to make it clear whether they see jumping off the ground in order to try and smother or whatever. I mean, that's just a normal act, isn't it? If you're trying to smother, you're going to try and make yourself as tall as possible. It's no different to standing the mark, is it?
Correct.
So are you allowed to jump up high when you're standing the mark? Yes, you are.
No, you're not.
You're not?
You are not allowed to jump. No, that is once an umpire tells you to stand, you must stand.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true now. Yeah. So but the ball's in motion but on this occasion the ball's in motion. So with the ball in motion, you're allowed to jump up. So why can't you jump up in order to try and smother a ball? You know?
You know what? He deserves 3 weeks just for the shit haircut that he's got, and that he wears a Collingwood jumper.
Joe's showing his
true colours.
Joe's showing his true colours in so much as how much he hates Collingwood. But
if you haven't realised, no, I don't hate Collingwood. I fucking hate Collingwood. Right? The only good thing to come out of Collingwood is Johnson Street. That's about it.
What? Because it can lead you into Fitzroy instead.
Yeah, it's on the way to Carlton and Kew. No, I hate Collingwood, Essendon scum and yellow and crap.
Okay. Anyway, fair enough. So what do you think, Joe? So what's your tip for both?
I think you'll get rubbed out. I think the AFL are going to want to make a test case of it, and I think we're going to have a protracted legal battle as well. I think it could be something like Carlton where they end up appealing, and if they don't win the appeal, they'll take it to court. So that's what I think. In all seriousness,
I think the crucial issue here is whether the tribunal deems that his action was a bump or not a bump.
Yeah, but once you leave the ground, Vince, you've put yourself in that. But he didn't jump straight up. Right, he jumped at the player.
Yeah, he did thrust himself forward. Yes,
that's going to be the critical issue. If he'd have just jumped straight up, because when you want to smother a ball, Pete will tell you, you're either leaning over a little bit.
Absolutely, you are
up. So I think he wanted impact. I don't think he wanted to knock him out, but it's like the Commission says you want a bump, you got to pay the price. Anyway, Jack Martin.
Yeah, I think it was reckless, and I think it'll be downgraded from 2 to 1, and I think he'll miss this week's game. I thought it was and look, I think Martin, in some respects, sometimes tries to take, and I shouldn't say this, but more of an enforcer type role in the forward line, and show, because there's been some times during the season where he's laid a tackle or laid a bump, which has really hurt the opposition player. And I think that was his intent to go in, even though it was reckless and it was high. I still think he'll get a holiday for it.
Yeah. Vince?
As usual, I think Carlton will send in the high-powered lawyers, pay them a fortune at members' expense, and get him off.
Okay. I think it was. I don't
think he should be let off. By the way, I think he should get at least one and possibly two.
I thought it was undisciplined, and I thought when he did, I thought you've let yourself down.
Yeah. And Blakey was shaken up by it afterwards.
That's the problem. That's what's going to give him a week. That's probably going to give him the week. But like Vince says, I saw a comment there that it was accidental. Well, whether it's accidental or not, you go in swinging your arm like that, and you happen to connect with someone's jaw, you're going to cop it.
That's right.
Accidental or not accidental, you're going to cop it, because it's now the consequences of your actions which are taken into account. It's the condition of the player that you've hit that's taken into account. And I think Jack Martin's in a lot of trouble in terms of this week's game.
For example, if Blakey had gone off with concussion, Martin would be looking at 3 or 4.
Probably 2 or 3,
yeah.
3, yeah.
All right.
Well, Pete.
Oh, by the way, can I just make one more point before you say goodbye to Peter?
Yeah, go for it.
I've made this point very strongly before on another edition of our show.
We go. He's got the soapbox
and I'm not going to take a long time over it. All I'm going to say is, yet again, right, a ridiculous decision was made by the ARC. It was a ridiculous decision. The words that I heard that guy use was, you can see that the ball clearly touched the Carlton defender or the Carlton player's hands before crossing the line. That is absolute rubbish. Now, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of Carlton people are happy about it because we're on the right side of these decisions twice now. One in the Melbourne game with Marchbank, and now another time with Akers. But one day it'll go against us, and you'll all be spitting chips. We need to get this system fixed. It's just unacceptable. The AFL is running $1 billion business and yet can't invest in decent technology so that we can get the correct decisions made. And for anyone who says that they could definitively, using that camera vision, say that ball was touched, is talking through their backside. There's no way you could come to that conclusion, in my view. So anyway, yet again, another game gets potentially affected by a poor decision in terms of a score review. So to me, it just makes the whole competition a joke. The AFL's a disgrace. The people running it are a disgrace. They're a bunch of overpaid, unaccountable executives who will never make a decent decision in this respect. Yet again, how many times does this have to happen before they actually take some action? It's unacceptable. It's terrible. And one day it's going to cost someone a premiership. It's going to cost us a premiership one day. Not going to happen this year, Vince.
Not going to happen this year.
Why?
It's too late. They've got to trial it. They've got to test it.
You mean they're not going to change anything?
No.
Well, you can't. But the person who made that call upstairs cannot possibly come to that conclusion.
Yeah, but
there's nothing that says, even Brownie says he doesn't think it was touched. We all have different opinions, but there's no definitive evidence. The first one that went to the ARC, you could see there was a definite shift in the trajectory of the ball. Yep. In my view, if you cannot see that ball change trajectory, to me it's you cannot possibly say that it's been touched.
Yeah.
There's just blurry vision with the football, blurry vision with the fingers, and it's just ridiculous that decision should be made.
And the point is too, Vince, just to go along your subject there. The AFL came out before the final series started, and they promised everybody faithfully that this wouldn't happen in the final series, that we would have more clearly defined information to be able to assess it and come up with the right bloody answer. And yet again, that hasn't happened, and we're in a situation where we find ourselves in this.
And can I also just finish by saying that I also looked at that video of John Longmire, and John Longmire said he hadn't seen the vision. He wasn't commenting on that particular decision. He said, on one hand, we've been on the better side of this, and on the other hand, now we've been on the wrong side of it. What he said was, when asked the question, do you think that the video evidence that we've got to come to these decisions is acceptable? He said, clearly not. That's all he said.
Yeah.
He wasn't whinging about the decision. He just, like me, thinks that the evidence that we're using is unacceptable. Unacceptably poor standard. That's all he said. He wasn't whinging. No, Joe, he wasn't whinging. He wasn't having a great
I never said he was. I'm telling you, Vince.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
You cannot.
You said
you
that.
Listen to him again.
You listened to yourself back again. You said John Longmire was having a grizzle. He wasn't having a grizzle. No, he wasn't.
Having a grizzle about the system.
A system, but not about the decision. Not about the decision.
You can't do anything in 1 week, Vince. They need to test it. They've got to go and look at this. We're talking about $1 billion industry.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that while you haven't got better technology, you cannot come up with definitive decisions like the ball clearly touched the player's fingers. Rubbish. No one could possibly say that. But
I think if there's inconclusive evidence,
that's what should have been the decision.
If there's
inconclusive evidence,
have you seen the photo?
It's either got to be human intervention, i.e., the goal umpire, or the score stands.
Yeah,
either.
Yes,
right. You can't have an inconclusive decision and then be able to assess that and make a call on that. It's either going to be score stands or umpire's call. And if the umpire calls touch, then it's touched. If it calls goal, it's goal.
100%. And that's what they're paid for. What really annoys me is that these goal umpires these days are being paid to do a job and to make decisions. For 100-odd years, 120 years, they've made decisions, right? And now all of a sudden, they're loath to make any decision. If nearly anything's going upstairs these days. It's
I'm going to ask you a question, Vince. Have you seen the photos that the Ark's seen?
What do you mean have I seen the photos that the Ark has seen?
Well,
I looked at the vision. I looked at the same vision that they were looking at.
How do you know that?
Because it was up on the scoreboard.
How do you know they don't have different vision? Have you been in the Ark Centre?
Oh, come on, Joe. Well, why don't they show us? Why don't they show the rest of us in the public the same vision that they're looking at? And then we wouldn't grizzle. Well, how do you know that they've got any better vision? Do you know that they've got better vision?
No, I don't.
Well, then how can you come up with that statement?
No, I'm saying because people have said they've seen photos where it shows it's touched.
Oh, rubbish.
But hang on. We've been having this argument for 40 or 50 bloody years, right? Everyone argued that the ball was out when Armsy knocked it in. And then it's taken 45 years for someone to come up with a photo to suggest that it's not. Look, as far as I can see, unless they've got the correct technology and it's inconclusive, it's either score stands or umpire's call. It's got to be. You can't have it any other way. Anyway, boys.
Anyway.
Well, Peter, thanks for joining us. Thanks for the chat. Hopefully we'll see you next week to discuss another victory.
Well, look, it's in their hands, isn't it? And it's in the hands of the selection committee, and also now the players have got to understand how important this is moving forward, because there ain't no second chances again.
Exactly.
That's for sure.
All right then, Pete. See you next week.
Good on you, Brownie. Thanks, mate.
Just quickly, Joe, all the best. Hopefully it goes well, and and I feel for you.
No worries. Thanks, Pete. Bye. Anyway, so now that we've had that.
Yes.
But actually,
more fun and frivolity. Let's go to more fun and frivolity for a change.
I think if you listen to it, though, the goal umpire says, I believe it was touched. So I don't know. I haven't heard both of them, but my viewpoint is that they actually they don't say, I want to check if it's touched. They have to make a decision. because then if the evidence is inconclusive, they have what they call a soft call, which is what the umpire said, and then they have a hard call, which is what the ARC says. So I believe in both instances, the goal umpire says, I believe, or I'm of the opinion it was touched, but I would like to check. So if someone else can correct me on that, I would have to. I'll gladly eat my hat, but I think that's what they say. Anyway, it is now time for. And Vince, true to form, you let us down again last week.
Well, Joe, I thought that we'd back a horse by the name of the Best of You, but it certainly didn't have the best of its best of days last Monday at Bankstown. It came, 6th out of 8 horses. It was actually the second favourite and finished.
And it lost by nearly 16 lengths. 16 metres, sorry.
Metres, yeah. I watched the race. It had a beautiful run in the 1 out and 1 back sit, but when it was time to go and make some ground, it went backwards rather than forward. So, unfortunately, no good this week.
Okay, so this week you've given us 2 bets, right?
I decided. Well, look, the thing is this, right? Our Carlton theme song, as we all know, is based on a song called Lily of Laguna. And I couldn't help but notice on a couple of occasions looking through the fields, I saw horses with the name Lily. As a matter of fact, in the race that we're about to look at here, race 5 at Pinjarra tomorrow, the 11th of September, we've got 2 horses with the name Lily. So if you want to have a go at not only number 6, you can have a go at number 7 as well if you want. Oh, but I actually think number 6 is the biggest chance, Rattle and Lily, to be driven by Denny Roberts, who's a star young driver in Perth. She's going very well and for a very powerful stable down there. So I think that's our best chance. And I think that the number 1 horse is going to be an odds-on favourite. So we're going to back this one for the place and hopefully we'll get a decent dividend. Okay. So I think we're putting $20 for the place on it.
Oh, okay. And then the second horse is...
And the second race was at Gloucester Park on Tuesday night, also in Western Australia. This is headquarters. And this is a midweek meeting. And race 4, number 5, is called, Lily Laguna. Not Lily of Laguna. It should be Lily Laguna, number 5.
I put Lily of Laguna because I was thinking of the song. So
obviously. Anyway. No, that's all right. So, look,
this
one's going to be a rank outsider. So, we're only going to put a little $5 for the place on this one.
All right.
If it runs the place, we're going to be very well rewarded. So, I don't think it'll probably do much. But anyway, we'll see.
We've only got $40, so you're risking 25 of it.
No. We've got $50.
No, but your bet lost last week.
Yeah, but we were coming back off $60 odd.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I took it off because I
no. It should be a balance of 50. So okay, I thought we'd use half of the 50 and see if we can boost it up to around 70 or 80.
All right, so I fixed it. Okay. So it's come to that time of the evening, Vince, where we must bid our loyal bunch of followers a fond farewell.
Yes, indeed.
But before we do that, let me go through this week's lineup. Tuesday night on the Blue Abroad channel at 7 p.m. We've got the Jumper Punch boys. Then
they'll be fired up, no doubt, after the big win on Friday night.
Wednesday night, we've got Forever Rivals on the Jumper Punch channel at 7, followed by Legends of the Jumper Punch. And this week's legend is...
G'day, Brad Pearce here, 1995 Carlton premiership player. Stay tuned to watch the Jumper Punch, Wednesday, 7 o'clock. G'day, Brad Pearce here, 1995 Carlton premiership player. Stay tuned to watch the Jumper Punch, Tuesday, 7 p.m.
Well done. Hey.
So there you go. So
there he is, the great Brad Pearce. What a fantastic forward he was for us back in the 1995 premiership. Yeah, he used to share a house with a couple of other footballers back in the day, but he's certainly
Davis
well and
Street,
truly.
He was in Davis Street, North Carlton. He was my name. I lived about 3 doors down from me. So there you go.
Well, he would have lived with Ben Harrison back then, I think. Ben Harrison and Matthew Richardson.
Matthew Richardson, and there was another Richmond player. They were all from Tassie.
That's right. Yeah.
And then, of course, next Sunday.
Now you'll be glad to know that he's settled down. He's got a lovely wife and a couple of kids who both play football. So you never know. They might end up being footballers one day.
And then, of course, next Sunday night at 7:30, you've got us, Blue Sunday, with you, me, and Mr. Brown. Okay, so like I said, don't forget, we are a social media channel, so please like, share, and subscribe on Facebook at Blue Sunday, on YouTube, The Jumper Punch. If you know anyone that is a Carlton supporter, please, please, please ask them to get on. And so, until next week, this is Joseph Lutzer saying goodbye. Have a great week, and 1, 2, 3.
Go Blues!
Go Blues. And there we go. Oh, sorry. Wrong one. Done the wrong one. I've got too many.
What have you done, Joe?
We are the Navy Blues. We are the old dark Navy Blues. We're the team that never lets you down. We're the only team old Carlton knows. With all the champions they like to send up, we'll keep our end up, and they will know that they've been playing against the famous old dark blue.